Call this meeting to order. Rise to the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I would mention that Commissioner Olson is not here today. He has an unavoidable conflict, so he is excused. First item of business is public comment. During this part of our agenda, we allow folks to come up to the podium to address the board regarding any subject for up to 2 minutes and for 10 minutes for total. Would anyone like to address the board regarding any issue? I'll ask that 3 times. Does anybody wish to address the board? Did you want to address the board?
I have a question.
Chase, come on up.
Mine is on the issue of the road in Dresbach.
Okay. We need you,
Do I do that
Yeah,
later?
your name and your address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Judy Bader,
Okay.
30852 Old Mill Road,
Okay.
Dresbach.
Okay.
So I would like to address the board on the road issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's after the meeting. Do I do it then or do I do it now?
Can you do it in a minute and a half?
I sure can.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. As I stated, I'm Judy Bader. I'm a resident of Dresbach and a member of the SSD. It has taken Dresbach so long to move forward with the centralized sewage system because we didn't have a site. Dresbach has very little public land, and with the geography of the area, most sites, public or private, are not suitable. The MDOT site is viable. With its availability, gives Dresbach the opportunity for a centralized sewage system a reality. MnDOT will vacate the 1/2 mile frontage road when they vacate the site. This 1/2 mile road has historically been County Highway 12 and is an extension of County Highway 12 that runs through Dresbach, known as Riverview Drive. I am asking that the Winona County retake ownership of the 1/2 mile road directly from MnDOT. We have been told that MnDOT will upgrade the road prior to transferring ownership. 66 property owners in Dresbach will be responsible for all costs associated with the centralized sewer system. A state grant is necessary to make the project affordable. Even with the grant, the burden on these taxpayers is significant. Winona County would relieve a small portion of this financial burden to these taxpayers by taking over the road for a minimal cost to the county. This would be a huge benefit to Dresbach. A public sewer system in Dresbach will be an asset to the county. Many septic systems in Dresbach are not compliant under the current county codes. Just like Dakota, upgrading these systems individually will be a challenge. Variances will be needed for many property owners. A centralized system is the best and only permanent solution. Contributing to the greater good of Winona County is the most significant benefit of completing the centralized sewage system. Dresbach has taken steps to move forward with this project by committing money to fund the facility plan for the MDOT site. These steps will protect the water quality of our county. Protecting groundwater is a public health issue. Being good stewards of the Mississippi, which we all love, is part of our history and our legacy. Protecting this is who we are and what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Sir? Give you 3 minutes.
I was expecting to do this at the end, so.
Okay.
I am one of the 4 property owners that live across the street and downwind from the actual location that they're trying to put their septic system. We are not members of the SSD. Our property values are going to be impacted. The location of that site, all of the water off of the interstate and Highway 61 rush into a ditch which flows directly down to where my well is, or my water system is. It's a cistern. I have a document.
No, he did not. We need name and address.
Name and address.
Robert Bullis, B-U-L-L-I-S,
Okay,
at 31286 Secluded Road in Dresbach, Minnesota. Sorry about that. I have a document for the members which actually outlines more of the details. We're here because the actual town board was unable to secure the land because it was going to initially be transferred to the town. Residents in the town objected to having to take ownership of that road for the 66 members within the SSD. Within those 66 members, there's only 18 that support the program. There are over 54% that oppose the program. So as the previous speaker was saying, there are people in the community that are definitely for it and have been ramrodding this thing for years, but it's not the appropriate location. It's out of their location area and into the non-SSD people's location. It's amazing how this whole issue about the road was avoided during our last town board meeting. Had it been raised, the town board may not have increased the actual loan from $300,000 to the $500,000 level. What they're trying to do, and what they have actually done, is committed to a $4.5 million sewer project somewhere. They've also cited the fact that MnDOT has done boring samples. They don't even ask where. They just said, oh, MnDOT has done some boring. Bottom line is, this location is not appropriate. My lawyer has indicated that the legal responsibility for the land belongs, or for the road will belong with the SSD, unless this county bails them out and lets the SSD members get off with another free activity. Also, the land that you have previously approved is still there. It has been available. It has had engineering plans done for it, and the individual who lives just north of that land is offered to sell his property, which would be much less than the actual cost that they're trying to incur for looking at the MnDOT location. So there's a lot of issues here, ladies and gentlemen. Take them into consideration. Here's a copy for you to take a look at.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? Sir?
I'm Dave McCann. I live in Dresbach. I'm at 4679 Riverview Drive. I'm on the Dresbach Town Board, and I'll be short and sweet. I talked to Marcia yesterday on this, and this road issue, Dresbach is like Winona County. We've got a lot of roads that we're having problems taking care of, that have been put off over the years, and we can't afford this road. So I'll leave it up to you guys, but if you guys don't take over the road, I don't know how we're going to be able to afford to absorb that. So thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak? Third and final time. Anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, the public comment section of our agenda is closed, and we'll move on to the approval of county board minutes for August 22nd.
Also move approval. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi, to approve the minutes of August 22. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, 1, and 2 will acknowledge and the receipt of the land record minutes of June 9th, 2017, and the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes of July 20, 2017. We have a motion.
I'll move to approve and acknowledge the receipt of the approved committee minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to acknowledge receipt of the land records minutes of June 9th and the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes of July 20, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz?
I have nothing.
I have two announcements.
An announcement, please.
Okay. Commissioner Jacob?
Nothing for me.
County Attorney Sonneman?
Just a couple.
Okay. Let's see here. So we have the approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Commissioner Fritz, consent business.
Administrator.
Oh. I wouldn't call that a promotion.
Thank you. I'll read the consent business into the record. Committee recommendations 6.1, approve conditional use permit to Justin and Jennifer Spalding to allow a dwelling on less than 40 acres. Department recommendations 6.2, approve professional services agreement with WHKS and Company. 6.3, approve renewal of consolidated chemical dependency treatment fund, purchase of service and host county contract with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. 6.4, approve emergency operations plan. 6.5, approve resolution classifying each tax forfeiture and request DNR approval for sale of parcels. 6.6, approve the procurement policy. 6.7, confirm payment of disbursements. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Motion?
I move approval with one note that I would like to abstain from item 6.3, dealing with the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented with the qualification as stated by Commissioner Cavesi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Next agenda item is 7.1. We will receive a Towards Zero Death presentation.
Good morning. Most of the board knows me. I'm Jeff Peterson, and this is Jessica Schleck. Jessica is our regional coordinator for TZD.
Yes.
Welcome.
We also brought a few of our other partners along. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick.
Sure.
I am Fausto Cabral. I work for the DOT Rochester office. I'm assistant to the district engineer, and I work with counties and cities and state aid office, as well as TZD in other capacity.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Generally from the state, we also have State Patrol. Unfortunately, they're at a head-on crash this morning.
Who's this guy?
I just want to say good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Mr. Kramer. Morning.
We do like to show that we do have a lot of partners in the different counties.
Yeah, I coordinate the Winona County Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with TZD, but TZD is a statewide program that was launched in 2003. When traffic deaths reached 655. So it was decided that what we were doing just wasn't quite enough. So it was a program that was created by the Minnesota Departments of Public Health, or Public Safety, Transportation, and Health as a deliberate interdisciplinary approach to traffic safety.
Could I?
Yeah.
Would you like to go to the mic, please?
Not really.
People at home are watching, so.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
That helps. Yeah.
That helped, huh?
Right.
Break away to NBC.
Thanks a lot.
It's on YouTube as well.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the members of the TZD team realized that moving towards a goal of zero would require building those connections between state agencies and local organizations. So TZD regional partnerships have now been established in 8 geographical areas across the state. They're led by TZD regional coordinators like myself. Each has a local steering committee made up of traffic safety stakeholders. Those are led by MnDOT district engineers and a state patrol captain. So you can see my area in yellow down there. That is 2015 seatbelt usage, but I do like to point out that 2017, our seatbelt usage in Southeast is 90.3. So Southeast is definitely a leader in belt usage. Whoops, wrong way, sorry. So our vision is simple, to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on Minnesota roads to zero. The mission explains just how we'll do that, by collaborating. So the TZD program focuses on 4 strategic areas to reduce crashes: enforcement, engineering, education and outreach, and EMS. We've recently included a 5th E, which is everyone, because everyone shares our roadways. So as I said, when TZD began in 2003, we were seeing an uptick in traffic-related fatalities. 655 people died on our roads in 2003 alone. So our preliminary number for last year is 392. So what we're doing is working.
That's statewide, though, right?
Statewide.
Not just our district.
Yes, statewide. Your district last year in 2016 preliminary reports are showing 5 fatalities. But again, we haven't frozen the data from 2016, so that may change. So what we're doing is working, but one death is too many. So it took a lot of effort and collaboration to get here. And these are just a few of the legislative initiatives that have helped to push our trend line down. These actions are a direct result of a culture shift in Minnesota as it pertains to traffic safety, because most legislators won't support a bill unless a majority of the people are in favor of it. So the table to the right shows the number of deaths in the Southeast region by year. I like to point out that as the state of Minnesota saw a slight increase last year, Southeast actually dropped from 49 fatalities in 2014 to 48 in 2015, and preliminary reports are showing that we're at 46 in 2016. So you might be thinking that's only 3, but those are 3 lives that were saved by our efforts. So Southeast is heading in the right direction. So we've done great work the past 13 years to dramatically reduce traffic-related fatalities, which we should celebrate. However, we've hit a plateau in recent years. So we really need to continue to educate and change the way people view traffic safety and instill that cultural change, which will save lives, because our ultimate goal is 0. When Jeff turned this PowerPoint in, those were the numbers. As of this morning, we are at 240 fatalities versus 260 fatalities at this point last year. And I only have 1 recorded for Winona County. Is that right? So this slide shows how factors that contribute to crashes are interconnected. I just think it's interesting to point out that 93% of the time driver error is a contributing factor, which I don't think is any surprise to any of us in the room. We see it every day on the roads. So I talked a little bit about traffic safety culture this morning, but really, what is it? So it's the shared values, beliefs, norms, and attitudes that influence behavioral choices related to traffic safety. So to put this into perspective, if you believe most people don't speed, you're less likely to speed. So it kind of comes down to that recycling. 20 years ago, nobody recycled. Now, it's just socially unacceptable not to recycle. So we've recently launched a Message Monday campaign. Have any of you seen these message boards? They're all over the place. I liked yesterday's, but I can't remember it right now. But basically, we have started these to bring attention to safe driving. Message Monday relays safety messages each week in hopes of starting conversations that could positively change the state's traffic safety culture. We're hoping people talk about it at work. Whether you love them or you hate them, you're talking about them. So each of us in this room already has a goal of 0 fatalities for our family and loved ones. If everyone adopted that philosophy, they'd understand why 0 is the only goal that we can shoot for. I encourage you all to register for the 2018 Southeast Towards 0 Deaths Workshop. It's next May 2nd in Rochester at the International Event Center. It is a free event, free lunch, free parking, great place to network with other traffic safety stakeholders in the region. I'm not sure how many people from your area come, but it's a great way to network. I also encourage you to visit our website, tzd.org. Other ways you can get involved if you're interested in being a part of the steering committee, more than happy to put you on my list. If you just want to be on my email list, more than happy to do that too. So if you have any questions, if not, I'll pass it on to Jeff for an update.
Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, I have questions. So I know the emphasis has been for people to use seat belts. What are you working on with all the texting and the phone situations? What are you working on?
Well, we have an enforcement period every April. We're trying to educate all the time. Do you guys have your distracted driving?
Game that we play, events.
So he can talk about what he's doing at a local level, but we're out in the schools, we're out in the colleges, we're working with businesses, we're getting out and talking to people. So.
And what's a citizen's responsibility if they see somebody texting and driving down the road? What is a citizen's responsibility?
I know that they are encouraging people to, if you can, safely pull over, take a license plate, and call in. Are you guys encouraging that as well?
We are, and there is a lot of calls coming in, especially with the state patrol. You hear them getting those calls all the time that somebody's texting on the highway to watch for that vehicle.
Okay, so you need a full license plate and call. Do you call 911 or who do you call?
I wouldn't call 911 unless the driving is really bad.
But I guess, as a public, I don't know who I would call. Okay.
The non-emergency number?
Okay, all right. Somehow we need to make that more in the education process, I would think.
Include that?
Yeah, because if we travel frequently into the metro area, and it's horrific up there. And I don't know, you'd never get through if you stopped the call on everybody that's texting and talking on their phones and stuff.
Very true.
But, and maybe, just there's a maybe thinking, maybe there should be a separate, a 911 type of number, not a full, because you're asking them to call 507, 64, whatever, a long series. Maybe a hotline just for that usage.
Yeah.
Maybe, star 11 or something to make it easier, because I see that as a real problem.
I agree.
You know.
I think that's, yeah. I was just going to say, and that's why we're really working on this culture change. If we can change culture now, in 5 years, maybe it will be socially unacceptable for people to text and drive.
That's a great idea, that number. Engineering alone hasn't helped resolve some of the issues, but we've been working hard. In 2003, when TZD started, I was part of the group, and we learned that a county, I can't remember the name of the county anymore, was studying rumble strips or rumble strips. And I'm one example of a person that dropped off a family at the airport at night in Minneapolis and drove back. That was saved by the rumble stripes. I hit the rumble stripes, I woke up, got money, I got home safely. So engineering alone doesn't resolve the issues, and having that number could help, that everybody else could help. Your sponsorship could help us as well. That's why we're here today.
I just thought, call TZD.
That's great. We'll work on that. We'll bring the idea in and see if we can find a number to create for everybody.
Well, your point is excellent, because who here knows the non-emergency number for the sheriff's department?
A minority.
Four, and two of them happen to work there, so, okay.
I was just going to say that, me personally, on my phone, I have in the numbers for dispatch for all the area counties where I travel, so that when I do need to call in, I can just say, call Olmsted County or call Minnesota State Patrol.
After you pull over, you mean? Yeah, okay, good, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's my segment. Some of the things that we're doing locally, this is slightly older. I haven't updated this as I should have. I've been doing other things. So we have promoted the parent education classes. We've helped with those, working with the local drivers training companies and organizations to help get the word out that these classes are very beneficial, that they can use this point of impact presentation, either presented by one of our deputies. The Winona PD also helps out with this, as well as State Patrol. So you can have a uniformed officer in there giving this short presentation, which really does make quite an impact on the children and the parents in the class. So we like to promote those programs. We also recognize our partners that are out there doing that enforcement action, because we know from experience that the enforcement is, we can educate, but it's that enforcement tool that really starts to bring about results. So last year we recognized Deputy Myers for his multiple DWI stops during a saturation patrol. And then we've also been engaging our EMS agencies. Comes easy for me because since I am an EMS provider, I've got an in with a few of these groups. So it's really easy to talk with them and try and leverage what they do into our activities as well. So they are very cooperative in our activities, and Winona Ambulance is very active on our local coalition. So they actually host our meeting spot and are almost always in attendance at our coalition meetings. That's all I have for presentation. Any questions for us?
Commissioner Ward?
I've got more of a comment. Okay, our EMS, Emergency Medical Services.
Emergency medical services, yes.
Right, okay,
And
so-
that's not just ambulance, it's also the first responders and a lot of the fire departments, yes.
Exactly. So, so the audience knows and everything, the EMS, and we have a lot of volunteer groups in rural Minnesota and Winona County, and we use the EMS. We fund a lot of, we are part of a regional EMS board, and we fund a lot of their training and activities through the seatbelt funds. Well, it's kind of an oxymoron. Okay, we're encouraging people to use their seatbelts so the fines keep going down. So our dollars for training these volunteer groups continues to go down. We're using money the punitive money we're using to do good things, but it keeps decreasing. And the amount of training and classes that all our EMTs, EMS people need continues to grow. And we want them to be very well trained and even equipped, medical equipment and everything. So it's just, our goal is to get everybody to use seatbelts, not have any fines, but then we need to find another funding source for this group of treasured volunteers. And I think you people, the staff people know that, but the public doesn't know it. So, but I don't want you not to use your seatbelt to help fund the, I do want you to continue using your seatbelts.
How about we encourage people to use their seatbelts and donate to their local volunteer agency?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of EMS do chili feeds, pancake breakfasts, and those types of things to fund their services. And so go eat pancakes, I guess, if that's what it takes. All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is 7.2, to receive jail advisory committee update and discuss and provide direction. Mr. Fritz.
Yes, I'd like to update you on the volunteers for the jail advisory committee based on the categories that the county board had provided at the previous meeting. I'll go through the list really quick. We've got a really good response in terms of people that are willing to volunteer their time to the jail advisory committee. First, we had 5 slots from the county, which is Karen Sonneman, the county attorney, Ron Gandrud, the sheriff, myself, Steve Buswell, the jail administrator, and the yet-to-be-named community services director. From the CJCC, we have Jeff Aspie. Karen, is that how you pronounce his name?
I think it's ASP.
Asp? Okay. Jeff Asp?
We've got several St. Charles people here.
Aspie, okay. Jeff Aspie, Justin Green, and Fatima Syed from Project Fine. Justin's with CJCC as well. City of Winona, Michelle Alexander and Paul Bostrak have been volunteered. They were also in our pony training. The court system, Judge Leahy from the Department of Corrections, Renee Patterson, and the public defender, Mike Keene, has also volunteered. Those were designated positions from the board. For the public, we had 4 members. 1 youth member, Madeline Neldner, has volunteered. Bill Spitzer. Bill Rokamp. And then from the treatment court, we're still waiting for a participant. They think they might have one, but I need to get back to them and work that out. Other organizations, we had 2 from mental health agencies. Julie Hansen and Danelle Anderson, both from Hiawatha, had volunteered. Julie said if we only had one, that she'd prefer to have her name on it. They might, kind of switch off or whatever, but they would represent the mental health, Hiawatha Mental Health. Ann Vandenberg from WSU, professor there at social services, would be the other mental health agency representative. 2 township officers, Ernie Culp and Leanne Bowman, were recommended from the Township Officers Association. We had a religious member, Pastor Joe McConkey. You might be familiar with him from working on with drug court. Wabasha County Sheriff Rodney Bartz had volunteered, and then Houston County, I'm still waiting for them to get back to me with a name, but I have made contact with them. That's the update as of today. What I'm looking for here is any direction going forward, preferably to provide the direction so I can come back and have the county board formalize this at a subsequent meeting, or so we can set up any kind of structure that we need to and get a formal approval from the board to create the committee, the number of seats and so forth. And then I would assume after that, some kind of organizational meeting would have to be set up and which my office can do and then see how the committee wants to move forward. Certainly any other recommendations on committee structure, members and so forth would be appropriate today.
I'm actually prepared to approve the list that you've provided today.
Whatever works, it's just.
Excuse me, who?
Myself.
Commissioner Ward.
I do have a question in your cover letter, September 1,
Sure.
2017. It says, however, there may be a work schedule conflict if the committee decides to meet in the evening. So it's saying those people want to meet during the day. I think one of the issues is this is if you really look at this is a very expensive committee. When you talk about wages and everything, and time is very expensive too. But I think in our initial conversation, we preferred the meetings to be outside of work so that it was a volunteer thing. It wasn't a kind of a paid position.
Well, in terms of a couple of comments on that. One, when you're talking about members from other organizations, I think that's something that they have to decide if they're doing it on their organization's time or not. From our standpoint, from our employees, we have 5 that are listed there that are department heads. So, in that case, they're going to whatever time they spend on this, they're kind of 24/7, the exempt employees.
Right.
So really that burden would fall on whatever the agency is. I will tell you though that I've had 3 or 4 of the people say it'd be fine as long as we can meet during the day. Even the treatment court alumni they identified had indicated that he's got a second shift job, for instance, and that it would be better to work for the day. So I think that's something that, in my opinion, the committee should decide.
Okay.
You should, once we have an organizational meeting, the committee can get a feel for their membership and what works best for them. I also think the committee's probably going to maybe break down into some subcommittees, and if that happens, those could be at different times as well. So I think it's kind of hard to pre-decide when these things should happen.
I wouldn't disagree, but I would say by looking at the committee, of course, the paid staff is going to outvote the public. And I don't know if these members of the public that are willing to volunteer, again, what their work schedule is and stuff. So again, I've expressed my concern.
Okay. Commissioner Kadesi?
Yeah, I'm ready to approve the list. I'm interested that the details as they get set about the process and perhaps the timeline, any focus statement, and those kinds of things, that all gets posted on the website so that it's a public document, easy to get to. And the other thing is on the meetings, occasionally we have some pretty complex groups that meet from 12 to 1. So that's kind of a halfway between thing. You do have to remember the high school member actually comes from Lewiston. So there's going to be, that's an issue too, but everybody's going to have different issues. But perhaps a 12 to 1 meeting just to get the structure set and some of that so that people know it's going to move as quickly as possible and, be as open as possible.
I think setting a meeting time for 24 people is going to be a challenge. That works for everybody.
And I think at some level that's going to be up. I think that's probably going to be a charge best left to the committee.
Yeah.
Determine the time.
Right.
Sheriff Genrud?
I should have done this before, but there's a person that I want to add to that list. Chief Deputy Mueller also.
Just from past experience, I was on a jail study committee several years ago on Sheriff Brand, and we did meet it in the evenings. That was something back in, about 14, 15 years ago.
Okay. Very good.
That's how, and it was kind of a similar group.
Okay. Well, one thing I would suggest too is that I think there's probably substantial pony materials that this is needs assessment. And so I think that's probably a pretty refined approach that you use in going through that. And so my sense is that, if we want to appoint the members today, that would be great. The organizational meeting that they would have, they'd lay out who their chair and vice chair and all that's going to be. But that they provided the materials and the charge going forward from the materials that we already have. So, Commissioner Ward?
One other question then. And so this committee is under the purview of the sheriff. This is the sheriff. I mean, you will coordinate taking meeting minutes and doing all that type of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, that's a monumental task. And I think in all transparency and everything, I think meeting minutes need to be taken and, and recorded and everything. So it's not, doesn't come out of the price tag too, to get somebody to do that or tape them or whatever.
I would mention maybe before we vote on this, we've got the request from Sheriff Ganwood to have Deputy Sheriff,
Mueller.
Yeah, Mueller to join the committee too, which I don't have any problem with at all.
No.
Okay. So we would entertain a motion to.
Yeah, I'd like to have administration do as much as possible of the details and the legwork, because, we're asking, everybody is a busy person around here, but it just seems like the way the resources are, that perhaps the administration has a few more resources to delegate to. So I don't know how the sheriff feels about that. Obviously, the sheriff is a key member, and we'll see who gets elected as chair of this committee. But that's just my comment.
Commissioner Jacob?
And then just, for clarification, this committee will make recommendations to the county board. They won't really have authority to build, the extent of their authority is to just make recommendations to the board, right?
Yeah, the mission actually was adopted by the county board a couple meetings ago, and that's basically what it says.
Okay.
There might be some, I assume that in establishing the committee, there'd be some incidental costs. We have to provide, staff support and things like that for minutes and so forth. So we would do that in the course of, business. The only question I have still is we kind of have a conflict on who should kind of administratively handle the committee. I don't know that Ron, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, we can do it, his office can do it, whatever the board's comfortable with, or whatever Ron's comfortable with. I don't, if you want us to do it, I think that makes sense. Okay. I didn't want to step on any toes. Okay.
Is the task of the committee to do a needs assessment or to design a needs assessment, which will then come back? I mean, whatever the recommendation is going to come back to us.
Mm-hmm.
So
my understanding is they're
doing
a needs assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Assessment. That's set forth in Pony.
It should be similar to what the case study in Pony, although it may include, I would suspect, a little more work on the mental health side, because that really wasn't the focus of the Pony training. That was more beds and rooms and classifications and things like that. So, but yeah, they would come back with a kind of a template that would allow you then at that point to decide if you want to go further, where you'd have to actually hire paid professional planning staff to start laying out space planning and things like that, which then leads to other things like architectural and so forth. And I think I mentioned in those phases that were laid out by the National Institute of Corrections, the 3rd through 9th phase is basically where you start to actually look at what you need to do to accommodate that needs assessment. Okay.
And anybody who's curious about Pony is planning for new institutions. We had a 3-day training that was brought to us here by the National Institute of Corrections, which was really very valuable, and they have many, many fine materials on this, which I think will be a real backbone for the committee. And many of the committee members participated in that 3-day training also, which I think should help. So That's a really nice structure going forward. Even though we don't know if we're planning on a new institution, we're planning on a new focus or a new use of our resources to address mental health issues as well as law enforcement issues.
So we'd entertain a motion, and the motion should probably clarify that Deputy Sheriff Jeff Mueller is included
Yes.
over and above the list provided.
Also move to approve the members of the committee
Okay.
Second.
with the addition of Chief Deputy and Bill Rokamp
Right.
as a public wasn't on our list, but
Yeah. And Ann Vandenberg.
and Ann.
Well, yeah, I added that one, yeah.
Right.
And we have two that are still vacant, but when those agencies get back to me, we would fill those positions with those recommendations then?
Sure.
Or- Okay.
Did we have a second to that yet?
I second
You
it.
seconded? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi, to approve the list as discussed today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye.
Just a side comment.
Commissioner Ward.
When we visited one of the facilities, I think that, which county to the west here we visited? Mauer.
Mauer.
I think they said this was a 10-year commitment. The committee. I think one of the chief deputies advised us that this is a 10-year committee. Just so all citizens, now we got them committed. They're here for 10 years. It'll take a while. It's not a short-term commitment, was his comment to do something like this.
Okay, we'll go to community
Thank you.
reports and communications before we go into working sessions. Commissioner Kavesi, you had a couple of items?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that later this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, is the Association of Minnesota Counties Fall Policy Meetings. And I'm on the Health and Human Services Committee, so there will be updates, both federal and state. There's a presentation on a child protection prevention model from Hennepin County, which I know CJCC has been looking at and interested in. There's one reducing homelessness, and we had our successful opening of a warming shelter last winter season. So we are starting to address that issue in our community, as well as children of incarcerated parents. So there's lots of value to these meetings. The other issues, I'm going to sit in on the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee, and some of our general sessions have to do with preparation for the 2020 census and immigration workforce issues. So there's a lot of topics and a lot of information. There's a very good sharing, including competition with the beanbag toss. So those are always kind of fun. My second item is one that happened this last weekend, but it was a real display of community unity with the Winona Dakota Unity Alliance gathering out at Unity Park. And this is an annual event, and it seems to be growing every year. People seem to be moving on and working on real community issues of unity, stressing we are all one people, and some of the sessions were excellent this year. The speakers were very good. Just the program of getting people together from this diverse community of Dakota, Lakota leaders and members, as well as our Winona community, is really quite essential. We had visitors from as far away as the cities, several people from Wisconsin. So there's a lot of broad interest in these kind of topics, and I'm pleased that the Winona community has been addressing those through the Dakota Unity Alliance. So put it on your calendar for next year.
Commissioner Ward.
Follow up with Commissioner Kavesi's, yes, the AMC policy meeting, and she covered that very nicely. That's coming up. September 24th, the 4-H Federation is having their fall festival, and it is one of their major fundraisers. It's held at the fairgrounds. They have a pulled pork sandwich luncheon. They have a silent auction. So if you're not doing anything September 24th, go out to the St. Charles Fairgrounds and support the 4-H activities. Listening to the national news, I think we all remember, and it was covered in the newspaper this summer, the flood of '07. I think our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Texas and Florida, the devastation. I mean, we had devastations from a little rain back in '07, and we've had a few small events, but I know there's a lot of fundraising and everything. Just beware of if you're giving your donations to credible organizations so that the money is going for help. But I think I heard recently, I think as close as Rochester, people from the utility companies are headed south to help them get their power on. We just talked about cell phones. I think they can't even charge their cell phones, so how do they keep in touch with their families and friends? So there's a lot of work to be done there, and if Winona County can help in any way, we will.
You can always give blood.
Yes.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, I just want to talk about two things. I'll try to be quick. Ben Klinger, who's the jail program director at the Law Enforcement Center, and I attended the Justice Mental Health Grant Training Summit, there's a lot of words in there, in Washington, D.C. last week. And besides having beautiful weather, it was an excellent training where my takeaway was that, first of all, we're not alone in what we're working on in the justice system, and we can certainly learn from each other. There were teams of two all across the country and as far as Alaska. They're talking about their justice, their work in the justice system, particularly programming in the jails or in the justice centers. And so it was a great networking opportunity, and I think Ben and I both felt that there was a lot of good information for this jail advisory committee too. So that was really a good opportunity to go out there, and it was all paid by the grant, so no county monies were expended for that. The other thing I want to just highlight, because this will be the last county board meeting before the courthouse open house, which is also on September 24th, so go to the county fairgrounds and eat at the 4-H and then come over to the courthouse open house. This is the third time we've had a courthouse open house. It's the CJCC is sponsoring it, but we have numerous co-sponsors, including ASAP. I guess Phil left already, but Project Fine, our drug court, the Winona Historical Society, and the Crime Victims Office of my office. And there was a great piece, if anybody's a member of the Historical Society here, all about the courthouse open house in the latest newsletter. So the features of this open house will be the 5th anniversary of our drug court. So we're celebrating that by having an actual drug court session. And that will be at, I want to make sure I get this time right, I think it's 1 o'clock. And then we'll have a reenactment of our most recent graduation, which was a wonderful time. Bookending that will be a mock trial that we did for all the 6th graders in May, but we're putting it on again, and it's the ASAP's, or Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention's, theme of Parents Who Host Lose the Most. And I see the class from Winona State, right? Is that public health, right? Okay, so please come on over. But we'll be putting on that mock trial that puts a parent, a mother, on trial for serving alcohol to her kids at a party. That'll be at 11:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon. And then we'll have learning stations within the courthouse about many of the activities that go on in the courthouse daily, but also the historical significance of parts of the courthouse. So it's free to the public, and it's on hopefully a wonderful Sunday afternoon. So, thanks.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn and go into working session, unless there were some other comments.
Make a motion to adjourn and take a very short recess.
Very good.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob and seconded by Commissioner Ward to adjourn the meeting and take a brief recess before our working session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries, all voting aye.